It's 8:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. The house is quiet, or maybe the apartment is quiet. You're holding a phone that glows with notifications, yet the room feels heavy with silence. You tell yourself you're just recharging, that you value your space, that you've got everything under control. But deep down, there's a hollow ache that independence hasn't filled. You aren't alone in this feeling, and you certainly haven't failed. What we're experiencing isn't a character flaw. It's a cultural current pulling both men and women toward a shore of solitude we didn't consciously choose. We've been taught to wear our self-reliance like armor, mistaking the ability to survive on our own for the art of living together. But survival isn't thriving. When we pull back, we often do it to protect ourselves from rejection, burnout, or the messy vulnerability of asking for help. Yet, in shielding our hearts, we've accidentally walled off the very connections that ground us. This isn't about blaming dating apps, busy schedules, or shifting gender roles. It's about recognizing a shared wound. We've lost the everyday rituals that used to stitch us together. We've confused being self-sufficient with being self-contained, letting the small daily acts of reaching out atrophy until independence feels like isolation. As a hybrid team of human writers and AI analysis, we see the patterns in the data and the pain in the stories. We're here to explore how we can step out of isolation without losing ourselves, rebuilding those small, steady bridges of connection that remind us we belong. How do we stop mistaking independence for isolation and rebuild the everyday connections that keep both men and women grounded? We've spent years being told that strength means standing alone. For men, that often looks like a stoic fortress, where asking for help feels like a crack in the armor. For women, it can mean carrying the emotional weight of the world while quietly starving for a hand to hold the load. We carry these habits not out of malice, but out of a deep, often unspoken fear of being a burden or becoming one. We've confused self-reliance with self-sufficiency, building walls where we need windows. The wound isn't that we want to be alone, it's that we've forgotten how to lean without falling. When we treat connection as a transaction or a vulnerability to be managed, we lose the steady rhythm of mutual support. Men may feel they have to earn the right to be seen, while women might feel they have to perform care to be valued. Both paths lead to the same quiet exhaustion. So, we have to ask ourselves, where did the habit of holding our breath begin? How can we reclaim the simple, unglamorous work of showing up for one another without losing our sense of self? Healing starts by recognizing that needing someone else isn't a failure of character. It's the very design of our humanity. We aren't meant to be islands, no matter how strong our shores. The question isn't about fixing who we are, but about remembering how to reach out. It's about finding a way to stand tall together, where your strength supports my vulnerability, and my openness gives you permission to rest. How do we turn the key in the lock of our own hearts and invite the world back in, one honest conversation at a time? But the data shows the scale of the quiet crisis. Before we look for the path forward, we have to look at where we stand. The numbers tell us this isn't a personal failure. It's a shared weather system we're all moving through. Pew Research tells us that about 1 in 6 Americans feel lonely or isolated, all or most of the time, and importantly, this weight is carried by roughly equal shares of men and women. This balance reminds us both doors are open to this struggle. Neither side holds the monopoly on pain. Gallup's daily pulse checks reveal an even sharper reality. 20% of U.S. adults report feeling lonely a lot of the day yesterday, which translates to an estimated 52 million people waking up to that quiet ache. That is a vast community of neighbors and friends waiting for a signal that it's safe to connect. Harvard's Making Caring Common project shows this deepens in specific seasons of life. They found 36% of Americans report serious loneliness, a number that rises to 61% among young adults ages 18-25 and 51% of mothers with young children. These spikes show how life transitions can strip away support, leaving us exposed. When we see the scale, we can stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking, how do we bridge this gap together? The data describes a wound, not a verdict. It reminds us that the distance we feel is real, but so is the crowd standing right beside us, holding the same question. What the data shows, age, gender, and the loneliness curve. The numbers tell a story that cuts across generations, though the weight lands heaviest on the young. Across the board, adults under 50 are far more likely to report frequent loneliness than those over 50, with 22% compared to just 9%. This isn't a failure of character. It's a structural shift in how we live. In fact, young Americans aged 15 to 29 now spend about 45% more time alone in 2023 than they did in 2010, climbing from roughly 4 hours a day to 6. The world has quietly rearranged itself around solitude. When we look closer at gender, the picture demands nuance. Among men aged 15 to 34, 25% reported feeling lonely a lot the previous day, a figure higher than the national average of 18%, and the rate for young women, who also sit at 18%. This gap doesn't mean one side is broken while the other is whole. It highlights distinct pressures. Young men may be carrying a heavier burden of isolation right now, while young women navigate their own complex web of connection and disconnection. Both are hurting, just in different rhythms. The data describes the wound, a generation spending more hours apart, with young men feeling particularly adrift. But data is a map, not a master. It shows us where the bridges have washed out so we can start rebuilding them. Recognizing these patterns helps us stop judging ourselves for feeling alone and start recognizing the shared reality we're all walking through. We aren't failing at connection. We're facing a new landscape that requires a new way forward. What the data shows: the friendship recession and support gaps. When we look at the numbers, the landscape of connection reveals both shared struggles and distinct patterns. The shape of our inner circles is shifting. Today, 8% of U.S. adults report having no close friends, while 53% count between 1 and 4, and 38% have 5 or more. Yet within that broad picture, the path to support looks different depending on who you ask. Women are far more likely than men to turn to a friend for emotional support. 54% of women versus 38% of men say they'd be extremely or very likely to do so. This gap widens when it comes to mental health, where 31% of women frequently discuss it with close friends compared to just 15% of men. For men, the data points to a steeper historical slide. The share of men with at least 6 close friends has fallen by half since 1990, dropping from 55% to 27%. Meanwhile, the share of men without any close friends jumped from 3% to 15%, a 5-fold increase. These figures don't paint men or women as broken, they highlight how the bridges to vulnerability have weathered differently. Women often maintain wider nets of verbal support, while men have seen their circles contract significantly over decades. Understanding this isn't about assigning fault, it's about seeing where the ground is firm and where it's eroding. The data shows us that independence has sometimes come at the cost of isolation, especially for men, while women's support structures, though stronger, still leave many without a shoulder to lean on. The wound is real, but recognizing these patterns gives us a map to rebuild connection where it matters most. What the data shows: digital spaces as connection engines. If we look past the stereotype of the lonely screen, the numbers tell a different story. Digital platforms are quietly functioning as modern third places, offering shared ground. The data shows these spaces are deeply relational. In fact, 89% of teen video game players say they play with other people, in person or online. 72% play to spend time with others. These virtual rooms aren't isolating, they're bridges. About 78% of teen online gamers report that playing makes them feel more connected to friends they already know, and about half, 47%, say they've made a new friend online through a shared game. The numbers also reveal a gentle, gendered pattern in how these spaces are navigated. Boys are far more likely than girls to make new friends while playing games online, with 57% of boys reporting new connections compared to just 13% of girls. This reflects how different people seek belonging. Men often lean into side-by-side tasks, while women prioritize direct emotional exchange. Neither path is wrong. The data describes the terrain, not a verdict. Our direction forward is simple: stop treating screens as enemies and start treating them as doors. Recognizing this warmth gives everyone permission to meet where they feel safest. Healing asks us to step into digital spaces with the same care we'd bring to a living room. If you're feeling untethered, try joining a low-pressure online group that matches your interests. Small, consistent presence builds the bridges we've been missing. What it costs us. When we mistake independence for isolation, the cost is a slow erosion of the ground beneath our feet. This isn't about blame, it's about the shared ache of losing our everyday anchors. The disconnection whispers that we must carry everything alone, and over time, that whisper becomes a heavy reality. For many men, the cultural script of self-reliance can harden into a quiet fortress. Vulnerability gets locked away, not out of coldness, but because the path to safety feels blocked. Stress accumulates in the shadows, leaving a sense of heaviness that doing fine can't disguise. For many women, the expectation to hold the emotional fabric can turn connection into labor. The heart grows weary when every interaction feels like a responsibility, leaving little room to simply be held. Both sides suffer a loss of grounding. Without those small, consistent threads of belonging, relationships can start to feel transactional or high stakes. Intimacy becomes risky when we've forgotten how to receive care without judgment. The heart walls up to protect itself, mistaking armor for strength. Healing invites us to see interdependence as the true foundation of resilience. We can begin by reclaiming the mundane. Grounding returns when we value the low-stakes moments, the shared silence, the honest, "I'm struggling," the small check-in as deeply as the grand gestures. We are navigating the same storm from different decks. Compassion starts when we see the distance, not as hostility, but as unmet needs. Honoring the humanity in each other creates space for reconnection. We rebuild by allowing ourselves to be imperfectly connected, trusting that showing up again and again is how we find our way back to each other and to ourselves. Let's hold this truth gently. The distance we feel isn't a battle of right versus wrong. It's the echo of two different wounds aching for the same relief. Many men have been taught that strength means carrying the weight alone, that vulnerability is a crack in the armor rather than a bridge to another soul. This leaves men exhausted, guarding hearts told to hide fear. Meanwhile, many women have been socialized to be the glue, the emotional architects who must anticipate needs and smooth every rough edge. This leaves women feeling invisible, as if their needs matter less than the peace. When a man withdraws, it's rarely a rejection of you. It's often a reflex to protect a self that feels fragile. When a woman pursues or worries, it's rarely a demand for control. It's often a plea for reassurance that the bond is safe. We are both reaching for the same ground, a place where we can be known without being judged, where we can rest without being replaced. Healing starts when we stop grading each other's performance and start recognizing the shared hunger underneath. Your struggle to be enough is met with my struggle to be seen. We aren't enemies, we're fellow travelers who got lost in the noise of expectations. By honoring how we were shaped without ranking our pain, we make room to drop the defenses. We can offer the safety we both crave, not by fixing each other, but by simply witnessing the effort it takes to show up. That mutual recognition is the quiet foundation where real connection can finally take root. Healing doesn't arrive as a grand gesture, it grows in the quiet spaces of daily life. We often mistake independence for isolation, believing that pulling back protects us, when in truth, small acts of presence are what keep us grounded. For men and women alike, the path forward starts with lowering the volume of our defenses and raising the value of the mundane. Consider the power of the micro-connection. It's the pause to ask how someone is really doing, past the checklist. It's sitting with silence without distraction. These aren't fixes, they are practices. We rebuild trust by showing up in ordinary moments, not by solving every problem. When we feel the urge to withdraw, we can share a small truth. When we feel the urge to fix, we can choose to listen. This work is gradual. It asks patience as we unlearn habits of distance. There is no timeline for this healing, only the steady rhythm of showing up. If isolation feels too heavy or distress is acute, please reach out to a licensed professional or crisis support. As a hybrid team of human and AI, we offer perspective but cannot replace a trained clinician. Let's stop waiting for the perfect moment to connect. The direction is here, in the now. By practicing presence, we weave a net of belonging that catches us all, reminding us that we are never truly alone when we learn to see one another clearly. So where do we begin? The answer lies not in grand declarations, but in the quiet, consistent rhythm of everyday life. Healing starts when we recognize that independence, when taken to the extreme, can become a wall rather than a foundation. For men and women, the invitation is the same. Lower the shield just enough to let someone in. It might look like choosing curiosity over defensiveness when tensions rise, asking, "What's happening for you?" instead of assuming the worst. It could mean offering a genuine thank you for the invisible work your partner does, or asking for help before you feel completely overwhelmed. These moments are small, but they carry immense weight. They signal safety. They tell the other person, "You matter to me and I am here." Think of presence as a muscle we strengthen through repetition. It's the willingness to say, "I hear you," even when you disagree. These actions dismantle the isolation that creeps in when we feel misunderstood. By focusing on these micro moments, we build a reservoir of goodwill that sustains us through harder times. We all carry habits that push us toward isolation, often rooted in the fear of being seen or the pressure to have it all together. The direction forward is to gently disrupt those patterns. Replace the urge to withdraw with a simple check-in. Replace the need to keep score with the decision to keep the bond. When we practice this, we aren't just repairing a relationship, we are rewiring our own hearts for connection. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to be present. Healing isn't linear, and neither is reconnection. What matters is the intention. This work takes time. There will be days when old reflexes kick in, and that is okay. What matters is the return. Every time we choose presence over distraction, we lay another brick in the house of belonging we are building together. You have the power to shift the dynamic, starting today, starting now. Thank you for walking this path with us. This episode was crafted by a team of human writers and AI tools, working together to bring you clarity and compassion.